What do you do when someone stops playing fair? When the smiles are fake, the words carry hidden venom, and every single move is calculated to slowly bleed your power away? Most people explode in anger and lose everything in seconds. But Niccolò Machiavelli never fought fair when the battlefield turned dirty. In this video, you will learn the 10 brutal psychological rules that let you crush them silently, without raising your voice, without making a scene, without ever looking like the villain. By the end, you won't just survive their games, you will make sure they never dare to play them again. The moment the mask slips. There is a precise moment, and if you've lived it, you feel it in your bones. The tone shifts, the respect evaporates, but only by a fraction. At first you doubt yourself. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe it's nothing. Then the pattern repeats, a joke that cuts just a little too deep, a piece of information forgotten at the worst possible time, a subtle sabotage disguised as concern. That's when you know they are not careless, they are hunting. Most people make the fatal mistake right here. They react, they confront, they expose that they see the game. And the moment you show awareness without a plan, you hand them the map to destroy you. Machiavelli warned about this exact second. When deception enters the room, the first rule is not retaliation, it is ice-cold restraint. You do not strike the instant you smell betrayal, you observe. Dirty players feed on chaos. They want you emotional, defensive, explaining yourself like a fool, because the moment you step into their frame, you are already defeated. The real power move is colder than steel. You say nothing. You change nothing on the surface, but inside, everything transforms. You stop trusting words. You start tracking results. Who benefits when you lose ground? Who smiles when you bleed? This is not paranoia, this is strategic awareness. The moment you realize they are playing dirty is the moment you stop playing fair, but you never announce it. You adapt in silence. And here is the brutal truth most people will never accept. Once someone chooses to go low, the relationship has already become war. The only question left is whether you will recognize it in time and whether you will respond like a predator or prey.
Rule 1. Never react first. The instant they provoke you, the trap is already sprung. A public jab, a false rumor, a calculated slight meant to crawl under your skin. Your heart races, your jaw tightens, the words rush to your tongue. That urge to defend, to correct, to set the record straight, that is exactly what they are waiting for. The person who reacts first loses first. When you respond emotionally, you hand them 3 weapons: your strategy, your weakness, and proof that you are watching. You reveal your triggers, you reveal your insecurities, you reveal how to control you next time. Machiavelli understood that the battlefield is psychological long before it is physical. The first man to show emotion reveals his position, and position is everything. Dirty players do not attack to win immediately, they attack to gather intelligence. Your reaction is their reconnaissance. Every defensive word you speak gives them data. So what do? Nothing. Not because you are weak, not because you fear them, but because silence denies them information. When you refuse to react, they have no idea if they hit the target. They don't know if you are angry, hurt, or already 3 steps ahead. Uncertainty destroys them from the inside. Let them believe their move worked. Let them grow comfortable. Let them think you are blind. Emotional restraint is not weakness, it is the highest form of discipline. You are not absorbing the blow, you are storing it as ammunition. And here is where most men fail forever. They think strength is loud. It is not. Strength is control. If this rule already shifted how you see conflict, drop a comment below and subscribe because the next 9 rules get far more ruthless. Rule 2. Control the frame before you control the outcome. When someone plays dirty, they are not merely attacking you, they are trying to control the story everyone believes. The frame is invisible, but whoever owns it owns the battlefield. Dirty players rarely strike head-on. They hint, they imply, they position you as unstable, incompetent, emotional, not with facts but with tone and timing. If you rush to defend yourself, you step inside their frame. The moment you say that's not true, you've already accepted that their version deserves debate. You become the accused, they become the judge. Machiavelli understood that power is never about being right. Power is about deciding how reality is interpreted. A prince who argues publicly weakens himself. A prince who defines the narrative becomes untouchable. So, instead of defending, you redefine. If they imply you are emotional, you respond with surgical calm. If they question your competence, you let results speak while you stay silent. If they try to drag you into drama, you drag the conversation into logic and structure. Never fight on their emotional territory. Pull the entire conflict on your ground. The frame is everything. If they frame you as reactive, you lose authority. If you frame them as insecure and desperate, the power flips instantly. People don't remember arguments, they remember impressions. Your job is not to win the exchange, it is to control how every observer interprets the exchange. Stay composed, speak less than necessary, make them look chaotic without ever attacking directly. You don't win by shouting louder, you win by deciding what the situation actually means. Control the frame, and the outcome becomes inevitable.
Rule 3. Weaponize their weakness through patient observation. Once you refuse to react, you enter the most dangerous phase, pure observation. This is where amateurs collapse. They feel insulted and crave immediate revenge. Machiavelli never advised reckless retaliation. He advised patience, because information is worth more than emotion. When someone plays dirty, they always reveal their own cracks. No attack is random. Every strike comes from insecurity. So you study them like a predator studies prey. What do they protect too fiercely? What makes them defensive? Where do they overcompensate? What do they fear losing most? Dirty players project their weakness through their tactics. A manipulator fears exposure. A liar fears transparency. An insecure rival fears direct comparison. Instead of striking back, you collect data. You watch how they speak when relaxed. You watch how they crumble when challenged. You watch who they truly depend on. Because every human being has a structural weakness: reputation, alliances, charm, fear. Once you map what holds their power together, you know exactly how to dismantle it. But not yet. You do not expose it the moment you discover it. That would warn them. You let them grow comfortable. You let them believe their game is working. Meanwhile, you are quietly mapping every pressure point. Machiavelli believed cruelty, when used, must be decisive and calculated, never impulsive. That calculation begins in silence. When they play dirty, they hand you their flaw. Most people are too emotional to notice. You will not be. You will strike from knowledge, and knowledge always hits deeper. Rule 4. Reputation warfare. Destroy quietly, not loudly. In every social structure, reputation is the real currency, and the man who controls perception controls position. Dirty players often attack your emotions first, because that is surface level. The real war is reputation. Amateurs destroy loudly. They confront, they expose, they gossip. That is weakness. Machiavelli understood something far more lethal. Destruction is most effective when it looks like coincidence. If someone attacks your name, you do not counterattack with accusations. That creates noise, and noise makes both of you look unstable. Instead, you elevate yourself while quietly isolating them. You strengthen alliances, you become more visible where it matters, you tighten your circle. You deliver undeniable results in public, not to prove anything, but to create crushing contrast. Reputation warfare is never about attacking them directly. It is about positioning yourself so strongly that their attacks begin to look desperate and pathetic. Let them speak. While they speak, you build. You subtly allow their patterns to reveal themselves. You ask innocent questions that expose inconsistency. You give them enough rope to hang themselves. People believe what they observe far more than what they are told. If you remain composed while they grow frantic, observers will draw the conclusions themselves, and conclusions people reach on their own are permanent. The key: never appear vindictive. You do not destroy them emotionally, you outgrow them socially, you outposition them structurally, you outlast them strategically. Machiavelli warned that a prince must avoid being hated. Open attacks create enemies. Silent superiority creates inevitability. So when they play dirty, don't scream. Refine your image, strengthen your influence, let their own insecurity expose them. Because the most devastating victory is the one where they collapse and you never look guilty.
Rule 5. Strategic cruelty, when mercy becomes weakness. There is a dangerous lie most people still believe, that being nice will protect them, that endless forgiveness earns loyalty, that restraint makes you respected. It does not. When someone plays dirty and you respond with endless mercy, you are not being noble, you are training them that there are no consequences. Machiavelli warned that mercy without strength becomes weakness. A ruler who forgives every betrayal invites more betrayal, because humans constantly test boundaries, and when boundaries do not hurt, they expand. Strategic cruelty is not rage, it is not revenge, it is calculated consequence. There comes a moment after observation is complete and weaknesses are mapped, when silence is no longer enough. At that moment, you do not argue, you act. But the action must be precise. You do not damage everything. You strike exactly where it teaches a permanent lesson. You withdraw access permanently. You expose just enough truth to shift perception. You remove an opportunity they depended on, not dramatically, not publicly, decisively. The purpose is not total destruction. The purpose is to establish that crossing you carries a cost. Most people hesitate here. They fear looking cruel. They fear judgment. But understand this: if someone chose to operate without fairness, they already accepted war. If you never enforce consequences, you will be tested again and again. Strategic cruelty is a signal. It says, I am patient. It says, I am observant. It says, I do not react, but when I respond, it is final. Once someone experiences a calm, controlled counterstrike, they stop seeing you as prey. They start seeing you as risk. Mercy has value, but only when paired with unbreakable discipline. Rule 6. Cut them off their supply. Starve them of what they crave most. Every manipulator feeds on something: attention, validation, access, information, status, drama. When they play dirty, they are not attacking randomly, they are trying to extract supply from you. Most people make the wrong move here. They try to defeat the person. Wrong target. You do not fight the person, you cut the supply. Machiavelli understood this in political warfare. If an enemy grows strong, you do not wrestle him directly, you cut the resources that make him powerful. The same rule applies to human snakes.
If they crave attention, you give them none. If they thrive on drama, you stay ice neutral. If they rely on your information, you limit access completely. If they depend on proximity, you create permanent distance. Suddenly, their behavior changes. Without supply, their tactics stop working. Dirty players are conditioned by reward. When provoking you creates nothing, they panic, they poke harder, they escalate, and you remain completely unmoved. That is when desperation sets in. A manipulator without reaction is like fire without oxygen. It does not explode, it suffocates. This is not passive avoidance, this is controlled deprivation. You do not announce it, you simply withdraw what they were feeding on. Machiavelli taught that control comes from understanding incentives. Remove the incentive and the behavior collapses. When they realize you are no longer a source of energy or advantage, they face a choice: adapt or fade. Most fade, because a player who cannot extract supply cannot sustain the game. You do not win by overpowering them, you win by starving them to death.
Rule 7. Use fear, not noise. Why subtle intimidation wins. Most people assume they must respond loudly. They think dominance means volume. They think intimidation means aggression. That is amateur behavior. Noise attracts resistance. Fear creates compliance. Machiavelli made this distinction crystal clear. It is safer to be feared than loved, but fear must be controlled, never chaotic. Subtle intimidation is far more powerful than any outburst. You do not threaten, you do not shout, you do not announce revenge. You simply adjust your presence. You become quieter, more deliberate, more watchful. Your tone changes, your responses shorten, your eye contact lingers just a second longer than comfort allows. Nothing aggressive, just different. The human mind is hypersensitive to shifts in energy. When someone senses you are no longer accessible, no longer predictable, no longer emotionally available, tension builds. They begin to calculate. What do they know? Are they planning something? Did I miscalculate? That uncertainty breeds fear. Real intimidation is psychological. It is lowering your voice, removing warmth, creating the silent sense that consequences may exist even if you have not revealed them. When someone does not know what you will do next, they become cautious, and caution kills aggression. Dirty players rely on your transparency. Once you remove that clarity, they hesitate. Hesitation is power. You do not need to destroy them publicly, you just need them to reconsider crossing you ever again. You do not become louder, you become colder, and cold presence unsettles more deeply than any scream ever could. Noise challenges, fear restrains. When they play dirty, do not escalate the volume, shift the temperature. Rule 8. Make the counterattack invisible. The most dangerous strike is the one no one sees coming. When someone plays dirty, they expect retaliation, they expect confrontation. That expectation is their shield. If you attack directly, they prepare, defend, gather allies, and flip the narrative. Machiavelli warned against this exact mistake. Open hostility creates open resistance. Silent repositioning creates inevitability. An invisible counterattack does not look like revenge. It looks like coincidence. It looks like timing. It looks like the natural order of things. You do not announce your move. You quietly adjust the structure around them. If they relied on access, access disappears. If they relied on influence, influence quietly shifts elsewhere. If they relied on support, alliances realign without a word. They will never know exactly when or how it happened. You do not strike their pride, you strike their leverage. You do not damage their ego publicly, you weaken the systems that protect them privately.
By the time they notice something is wrong, the shift is already complete. Their position feels unstable, their confidence feels hollow, but they cannot point to a single moment. That is power. An invisible counterattack protects your image while permanently destabilizing theirs. Observers see you calm and steady. They never associate you with conflict. Meanwhile, the person who played dirty loses ground slowly, quietly, and forever. Machiavelli believed that if you must injure, do it in a way that eliminates the possibility of retaliation. An obvious attack invites revenge. A silent one removes options. The goal is not emotional satisfaction. The goal is irreversible advantage. When they play dirty, do not give them a fight. Give them a consequence they can never trace. By the time they understand what happened, it is already too late.
Rule 9. Leave no loose ends. Finish it so they never try again. Most people make one final, fatal mistake. They win, then they relax. They assume the lesson was learned. They assume the message was received. That assumption is weakness. When you counter strategically, you cannot leave loose ends, because unfinished conflict becomes future revenge. Machiavelli understood this brutally. If you injure an opponent, you must do it in a way that removes their ability to strike back. A half measure creates a future enemy. A complete measure creates silence. This does not mean total destruction. It means psychological finality. They must understand, without any dramatic speech, that the version of you they once manipulated no longer exists. No emotional goodbyes, no threats, just structural change. Their influence over you is gone. Their ability to provoke you is gone. Their opportunity to benefit from you is gone. When people feel that finality, something permanent shifts. They stop testing, they stop probing, they move on. Machiavelli taught that fear without instability maintains order. When your response is decisive and controlled, it reshapes all future behavior. Loose ends create recurring battles. Clean endings create deterrence. If they played dirty once and survived comfortably, they will return. If they played dirty once and encountered permanent consequence, they rarely repeat it. You do not finish loudly, you finish completely, and when it is done, it stays done. Rule 10. Become untouchable. You have just absorbed what most people will never dare to practice. Not reaction, not emotion, not noise, pure strategy. When they play dirty, you do not panic, you do not explode, you do not defend yourself like everyone else. You observe, you reposition, you remove their leverage, and when necessary, you finish it so silently they never see it coming. That is the difference between being targeted and being untouchable. Most people will keep losing because they react emotionally, but you now understand the hidden structure behind power, and once you see the structure, you can never unsee it. If this video changed the way you think about conflict, make sure you like it right now. If you have ever dealt with someone who played dirty, drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you are serious about mastering these ruthless rules and never being played again, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next video goes even deeper into Machiavelli's darkest secrets. Power favors the prepared. I'll see you in the next one.